There. I am glad you can make it today for this lesson because if you were here for the last lesson, you know that this is a two-parter caused by the cliffhanger at the end of the last one. Now, in the last lesson, we had Jacob who had just tricked his brother out of the blessing coming from their father Isaac. Now, Esau was pretty mad and he was thinking to himself, okay, dad's going to die pretty soon, and when he does, I am going to kill my brother. Well, their mother, Rebecca, found out about this and she decided, okay, we've got to get Jacob out of here. And so she came up with a plan, and it worked pretty well. She went to her husband and said, oh, it's just terrible. These women living around here, they're just not right for our son Jacob. We need to get him a good wife. And Isaac said, okay, what do you have in mind? She said, well, let's send him back to where my family is, just like you married me from there, then he can go back there. And Isaac said, okay, that sounds good. So they send Jacob back to her brother's family, and her brother was named Laban. He gets back, well, he gets there, and he meets Rachel, which is one of Laban's daughters, and he sees this girl and he goes, oh, she is great. He wants to marry her. And first, he ends up living at Laban's house for a while. And after about a month, Laban says, now, I know your family and all, but if you're going to stay here and work, then I need to pay you. And Jacob says, okay, I tell you what, I want to marry Rachel, so why don't I work for you for 7 years? And then at the end of the 7 years, then I can marry her. And Laban's okay with that. And that's what they plan to do. Well, things go very well. Uh, Jacob's a good worker, and God is blessing all of this. And you see, Jacob still isn't following God. In fact, on the way there, he had had a vision where he had seen a stairway or ladder going up into heaven and angels going up and down and learning how he was going to be blessed. But even with that, even though he acknowledged God was real, he still wasn't following God. He was still trying to do things his own way. And remember, he wasn't a really good guy at this time. But he did do good work for Laban. And after the 7 years, Laban had been blessed by all of this. And he went through with the wedding. However, he sneaked in his older daughter, Leah. Well, it's nighttime. I guess she may have been wearing a veil, and Jacob doesn't realize he's actually marrying Leah. He wanted to marry Rachel, and he finds out the next morning when he sees Leah there. He goes, hey, I've been tricked. And he goes to Laban, and Laban says, well, we have this rule here where the older daughter has to marry before the younger daughter can marry. Don't know if that was really a rule, but what he told Jacob, he said, okay, give it about a week and I will let you have Rachel as another wife if you'll work for me another 7 years. Well, Jacob really didn't have a whole lot of choice in this. And so he agrees to that. And next thing we know is that Leah starts having son after son after son. And he's married to Rachel too. And he loves her. He doesn't really love Leah. And God is blessing Leah with all these sons, and Rachel's not having any children. Well, eventually, Rachel is kind of upset because she can't have children. So she says, well, I have my maidservant. And uh, she tells Jacob, you have children with her and they can be mine. Well, he does that. So now he's got three wives. And then Leah stops having children and she does the same thing. So now Jacob has four wives, and these maidservants also have sons, two each. And then Leah starts having children again, And we're up to 10 sons that Jacob has with 4 wives. So things are really complicated. Well, the 7 years pass. He's wanting to move on, and um, just doesn't work out that way. And he stays another 6 years working for Laban. And Laban's going to pay him, but Laban tries to cheat him out of things because he'll say at first, "Oh, you can have the speckled sheep, and I'll keep the ones with streaks and spots on them." Okay, well, then all the sheep being born have speckles or spots or streaks. He keeps changing which one he wants, and they keep coming out to bless Jacob. And finally, Rachel has a son, and so now there are 11 boys, and then there's one girl who's born. So Jacob has this huge family, and they've been there for 20 years, meaning Jacob has been there working and he's been building up this family for 20 years. And now Laban's sons are grumbling about Jacob's, and he's getting rich off of our dad. But no one wants to acknowledge that God is blessing Jacob. And that is caused by the fact that they don't worship God. They have these idols, these pretend gods that they worship, and their gods aren't real, so they aren't being blessed. And Jacob talks to uh, Leah and Rachel and says, "Look, I mean, your dad's trying to cheat me out of things, and I think we need to get out of here." And they look at him, he's probably thinking, "Oh, they want to stay with dad and all that." And they're going, "Look, we know how our dad's been treating you. He treats us like we're not even part of the family anymore. So we're with you, whatever you decide to do." Okay, that makes it easier. Well, Jacob is still kind of the sneaky sort of guy. So when his dad is out, well, his father-in-law is out shearing the sheep, he gathers all of his animals and things and he takes off. He starts heading back for where his family is. Well, Laban finds out about this and he goes after him and he catches up with him and he's going, "Okay, what's this you're doing? Running off? And you're taking my daughters and my grandchildren away and you're not even letting me see them?" And they start throwing accusations back and forth at each other, and both of them have some points to make. And finally, because Laban has this dream where the real God tells him, "Don't mess with Jacob," Laban decides, "Okay, we'll just make a treaty and we'll have peace between the two of us, and I'll get to kiss my grandchildren one last time, and then we'll go our separate ways." So they agree to that, and they split up, and everything looks fine. But Jacob's got another problem. He thought he had just the one problem. He's got another one. He hears that Esau now knows about him, and Esau's coming to meet him, and Esau's got 400 men with him. And that spells very scary news for Jacob because you don't just travel with 400 men back in that day unless you're planning to conquer someone or wipe them out. And he remembers, "Oh, yeah, Esau wanted to kill me." So he does something kind of sensible where he gathers together a bunch of his animals. He takes sheep, goats, donkeys, cattle, camels, and he sends them ahead with some servants to give to Esau as a gift, saying, "Okay, I want you to have these." And these are a lot of animals. And we think now that he's trying to make up for the fact that he had taken all of these things, these blessings from Esau that he should not have. He sends those out and then he kind of divides the camp and in two so that maybe some of his people, some of his family and all can get away if Esau starts killing people. And he's real nervous, Jacob is. And at one point he gets to the river Jabbok and he sends everybody over and he stays on the other side of the river. We're not sure why, but God shows up in the form of a man and wrestles with him through the night. Jacob eventually figures out who it is and he's not going to be able to win. And God touches him on the hip and dislocates his hip, and extremely painful. But Jacob holds on. He says, I'm not letting go of you until you bless me. And God says, okay, fine. At that moment is when Jacob had finally turned the corner and decided to follow God and to do what God wanted him to do. And as a result, God changes his name from Jacob, meaning he deceives, to Israel, which means he struggles with God. And that's a thought for us, in that we, in our lives, are to struggle with God, meaning we are supposed to work things out with God. We're supposed to get to know Him and work with Him and work out what we are to do for Him. Well, now Jacob is still nervous, but he is on the right path, and he goes ahead and he goes to meet Esau, and he bows down before him. It's a way in that time of saying that, okay, you're the boss, you're the better guy. He doesn't. Esau runs up to him and hugs him. Esau doesn't want to kill him anymore. He wants them to be together as brothers. And after that, everything has just worked out. Everything is the way that it should be. And so, Jacob is relieved. He's able to show off his family. And then when they split apart, everything is good between them. In fact, Esau doesn't even want to accept all of the gifts that Jacob had sent, all of the animals. And Jacob insists and says, no, no, please take them. And Esau finally does. So, what we see through this story is that Jacob starts off not following God to following God, and it took him 20 years of going through a lot of experiences before he realized that, this is what I need to do. What we learn from this is that, the sooner we can turn to God and follow Him, the better things are for us in our lives. And we can avoid a lot of problems if we go ahead and just turn to the real God. Okay, with that, I'm going to stop and show you. Today I've got a tie with Dalmatians on it, and this is kind of to remind us about the speckled and the spotted and the striped sheep that Jacob ended up getting and got rich from, thanks to God's blessing. All right, with that, I'm going to let you go, and I hope you will be back next time. Bye.